Welcome to the September edition, the 2023 season of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. I am Shadidi Laser, and I'm looking forward to tonight's session, tonight's presentation. Let's see. And so I will share my screen and walk through our overview and announcements for tonight. And we have a great session ahead for you. And so okay, for those of you who are new to this season of Baltimore SharePoint, what is BSPUG? Well, Baltimore SharePoint Users Group is Maryland's longest running Microsoft focused community learning institution. Every third Thursday of the month since calendar year 2007, we have had a meeting. The only time that we do not have a meeting on the third Thursday of the month is if we have our annual one-day conference on the third Saturday of the month, which many of you know as SharePoint Saturday. And so with the world negotiating whether they want to meet in person or virtually, we have not had a SharePoint Saturday, let's say during the pandemic season, but we will return. We were very close to delivering a virtual session, but in person is what we do best. So, but I'm sure the team will definitely want to host another event for 2023. So stay tuned for that. So as a learning institution, I had a business coach approach me about what was going on at Baltimore SharePoint. And so he started to quantify some of the things we had going on. And when you think about, let's say, the number of Microsoft practices that were started from members who may have been laid off and went on to become Microsoft Gold partners, the statistic that I'm most proud of are practices that were started and came back as, let's say, platinum sponsors of our annual conference. So that's the ultimate full circle moment. Someone who may have attended the user group to learn, and changes may have happened at their job, their contract, and then they gathered a few friends from the user group, started a company that won a few projects and became successful. So very proud of those details. The number of MVPs who have spoken on our in-person and virtual stages is literally a who's who from around the world. And so we still exist. And so very happy about where we're going and where we've been. And so special thanks to ProObject. When we are in person, ProObject is our location sponsor. They're located less than a mile away from the Maryland Live Casino. So we meet in the Arundel Mills area when we're in person. But Ted Staley, when we're in person, is the gentleman who stays after hours to make sure logistics are taken care of with our meetings. And so special thanks to ProObject, who has continued to support us as we've gone virtual. Now, unemployment and job uncertainty. Now, no secret that contracts and funding and everything has been topsy-turvy over the past 2 years. And so one detail that I'm adamant about is the golden rule. And so the Baltimore SharePoint golden rule is this: if you can hear my voice, you are coming from somewhere during the day, whether you're searching for work, whether you are at a job somewhere, at a contract, doesn't matter. And so coming to our meetings indicates that you are going above and beyond in your career. There's no secret that user groups are the cheat code for those who want to learn. The first time I even heard about, let's say, Moss 2007, because I've been doing this for a while, was at a user group. And so I got the advanced preview. And so the value of that is when you go into your Thursday or Friday meeting or Monday meeting and a solution is discussed, something you learned at a user group gives you the ability to raise your hand and say, well, I know a vendor, I know a resource, I know a tool, I know a technique. And it just puts you ahead. And so if you're constantly exposed to those opportunities, then of course it helps you to progress. And so we as a user group do not allow blatant marketing pitches from recruiters at our meetings, but it does not mean that they do not exist and that we do not have relationships with them. So if you are in a situation where your contract may be ending, or you just have, let's say, the spidey sense that it's going to end soon, if you're a member of the group, meaning you've attended at least one meeting, then yes, I would like to hear from you so that we can get you in front of our recruiters and discuss opportunities. At this point, we do not accept, let's say, referral bonuses and things of that nature for people we place. But the most important thing is that our members have access to the best and brightest job opportunities. And so this slide needs to be updated. The secret is that our resume and review sessions continue to go forward. So it should be December, but each quarter we update this. So if you need LinkedIn review, resume review, so on and so forth, and your job situation is going south, then please email me directly and we'll facilitate that. Again, we have numerous recruiters who, any user group is a hub for career activity, but we don't allow blatant, meaning someone who's outside of the BSPUG network, to just come and say, hey, we have this position. We like to build relationships with our staff and professionals who are reputable and place people consistently. Okay, so in terms of what you can expect, let's say with this season of BSPUG, we're going to have more than third Thursday meetings. And so there will be meetings where we discuss the latest news and industry notes in more of a broadcast format. We're going to also revisit our campfire sessions, which are more or less behind the brand. So if, let's say, Fabian Williams, for example, who has spoken at BSPUG 103 times, is actually his first speaking gig was at our conference. So if Fabian, for example, if we want to know about his journey from, let's say, Planet Technologies to Witham to Microsoft and the journey in between that, this is our opportunity via the campfire to do more of an interview style, podcast style session with him and allow for our group to ask their questions as well. So you get to know the person behind the books that are written or behind the presentations. And there's a few interesting campfire sessions that exist online, but we're bringing that back. And you can also, our certification study groups as well will be coming back into play. So lots of things that we're looking forward to as we head into the 2023 campaign. And now I'm calling on you, fellow experts, call for speakers. And so we're looking to, of course, if you want to listen to my voice every month, I can present. We know this. We've been around for a while. I will deliver a session, but variety is the spice of life and why we come to user groups. So in terms of topics, break, fix, what I learned on a job, what I learned in this deployment, code review. And so they don't have to be 60-minute or 75-minute sessions. My first presentation was 10 minutes on AvePoint installation. So if you've installed software or you learned something along the way, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I personally have seen every presentation for this group, so I know it works. And so I will review the slides with you and give suggestions so that you can't fail. And what many speakers have mentioned is how warm and supportive our audience is. And especially if you're looking to take a topic and bring it to the big stages, whether it's a SharePoint Saturday or a conference style event, you can work on your material with our group. And if you say, I'm open to feedback, we will give you that constructive feedback. So next steps is just email me directly with your topic, and we will look to schedule you along those lines. Now, without further ado, I'm going to let Ben introduce himself, but he's coming from Witham. Witham is definitely a friend of the program here. Several MVPs and technical experts from Witham have come to deliver sessions. And I just funny full circle moment that Moss 2000 presentation was from Daniel. He actually was the person who delivered that presentation way back at another user group. And so back when, before the Witham merger. And so interesting full circle moment that I just realized. And so, like I said, Witham is definitely a friend of the program. And we have one of the experts from Witham here to deliver his unique brand of magic. And so I'm going to let him get into the topic, into his background. And so I'm going to stop sharing. And Ben, please take it away.
All right. Thank you, Shadid. Hello, everybody. I'm Ben. Let me get my screen going for a second. First off, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak. This is the first time.
I'll give Ben a moment as maybe some Wi-Fi challenges. And so just give a moment while things sync up. Now, while we wait for that, with the presentation as a whole, if with any questions that you may have, make sure you use the chat. If he wants to take, let's say, questions from, let's say, unmute, then he'll indicate that as well. But as a general rule of thumb, so that we can manage things, we will use the chat. I appreciate that, Fabian. Let's see. Okay. So for the chat, or instead of chat, use Q&A. The Q&A feature, which should be at the bottom of your taskbar here. So I will, give me a second, upgrade Ben's access here. He's back. There he is.
Okay, sorry about that. I got a blue screen, first time speaking, get a blue screen, that's life. Trying to get all of my slides back up. Let's see.
So the presentation unspoken rule, Ben, is that laptops, they need coffee. The
Yes.
laptop gods, they definitely need coffee beforehand. And so, but like I was saying, for any questions that come across, I'll be on mute, manning the Q&A. So okay. I will at certain spots within your session as questions come up.
You went back on mute. Okay.
So yes, I'll be on mute. And so once you're ready to share your screen, it's all on you.
Okay. So thank you guys for having me here. My name is Ben Hill. I am a product engineer at Witham. You can reach out to me via email at I'veBeenAutomating@outlook.com. All right, so today's agenda, what we're going to go over a little intro about myself. We're going to go to a demo of a solution that I created for adding users to a group for 365 groups with PowerAutomate using the Microsoft Graph API. And then later, we're going to ask questions to see what issues that you guys are having that you're thinking about automating. And let's try to figure out if we can actually do that together. So who am I? I'm Ben. I'm a veteran, a software developer, chicken nugget enthusiast, meme expert. I spent 12 years in the Army as a 35 Tango, go Army. You know, Fabian's Marine. Sorry about that. Spent 12 years in the Army as a military intelligence information systems maintainer and integrator. And if that's not a tongue twister, I don't know what is. Traveled all over the world, did a lot of cool things in a lot of top secret places, and got a lot of experience with meeting a lot of different people, doing a lot of different technology. So what is PowerAutomate? PowerAutomate is this magical tool, this low code, no code, awesome thing. And I'm going to call it a thing because, you know, when you say a thing, things can do anything. PowerAutomate is a tool that you can automate task flows, workflows, whatever you need to do. You could probably do it through PowerAutomate, whether that be, you know, making API calls to a service or sending follow-up emails, which I should probably get back on because I definitely miss a bunch of emails. That's something that PowerAutomate can do in a low-code, no-code way, and it really helps everyone out. I know one of the things that I do and what I've learned at Witham, I'm an internal software developer. So at Witham, I hear people's biggest complaints about, you know, doing tax returns or printing information off or, you know, just moving things to Box. And my team, they grab the information, we talk to the user, we say, okay, we think we could do that. 90% of the applications that I write are in the Power Platform. For data visualization, I use Power BI. For automations, I typically use PowerAutomate. You know, for applications that are hosted in Teams, you know, Power Apps, and all of that stuff links together. So again, you can create custom automation processes, extract data, which is one of my favorite things to do because, you know, we've all been there, or I know a bunch of us have been there where we're making an API call in some type of language, and then you're parsing that information and you're like, okay, hopefully I have everything right. Locally, PowerAutomate allows you to do that very, very easily. Let's go to the next slide. This is an overview of the Power Platform, which is, again, this is a tool that's constantly growing. Power BI is for data analytics. You know, people are like, oh, you know, a lot of people are scared of new technology. So, you know, when someone talks about Power BI, they're like, oh, no, I'm gonna back off of it. But if you think of it as a Excel on steroids, then you're good. Power Virtual Agents is another wonderful tool that I'm currently using right now at work, where I just got done this morning building a proof of concept of having a user talk to a bot, to a Power Virtual Agent, to print a tax return and send that information directly to the client. And we actually have a Power App that I developed for Teams that does this, you know. And the reason why we're doing all of this is because we want to save as much time as possible. You know, time is money, you know, and no one wants to be broke. So if you could find a way to save 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, it makes people's lives a lot better. Everyone could spend more time with their family. And the greatest thing about all of that stuff, the chatbot features in Teams, or the low code, no code applications in Power Apps, or pulling data in for data visualization, all of that stuff for me and my team starts with PowerAutomate. I know I have one of my developers in India, very, very bright person, and they write a lot of Excel VBA macros. Now, I'm not a VBA person, not the best at it. I also don't excel at Excel either, but I make it a PowerPoint to learn as much as I can. But some of the flows that we already built for our team in the Power Platform, we were able to call API calls from the macro to replace roughly around like 90% of the code that's in her macro by doing everything in Flow and linking it to a lot of other things. A couple of the things that are inside of the Power Platform are Power Portals, or now Power Pages. The AI Builder is another beautiful tool that just is amazing. So there's a couple different versions of PowerAutomate. PowerAutomate Desktop they have what's called an unintended RPA, or robotic process automation. So if you ever had to click things and you're like, I'm getting tired of this, I don't want to click it anymore, PowerAutomate Desktop is one of the best tools to actually get this done. One of the use cases that I've had was we didn't have access to the API for UPS. And our depot for our help desk was constantly, going to the website, printing labels off, and then reaching out to the person and doing all of that. Some of the things that we've actually done was we used PowerAutomate Desktop, built an RPA flow to open up the website, grab the iframe and put all the information in, print the label, and send all that information to the new person that's being onboarded or offboarded. And that was one of the best things I've done because it saved a lot of time. Another thing that we've done with PowerAutomate Desktop was there's a proprietary software that we use, and that only offered a Windows-based API. And anybody who's tried to deal with Windows-based APIs, sometimes they're not the greatest. But I was able to take that and turn it into a PowerShell module to save a lot of time. Now, again, I could have added a webhook in there to access the Power module, but I ended up using PowerAutomate Desktop to save cost for assigning licenses and doing a lot of things that roughly saved around I want to say 1,100 hours a year. PowerAutomate for Microsoft Teams. PowerAutomate for Teams is another wonderful thing that you can use to get Teams notifications and send information. If someone posts something in a channel, you can have a flow that you built to respond to that or provide them with the right information. PowerAutomate Web is what we're going to go over today. And PowerAutomate Mobile is one of the best tools ever, because if you ever really needed a low code, no code environment to do big production items, you can do most of this stuff on your phone. That's one of the greatest things about the Power Platform is the versatility of it, where if you're out and you're not at your computer and someone's asking you for help, and they say work-life balance, but sometimes you want to help the people out. You can actually develop a lot of the flows or start the flows on your phone, save it, and share it with them. And I'm saying that because I've done that, and a lot of people really, really appreciate that. Okay. Yeah. So a couple of benefits are, increases work proficiency. You could provide alerts. Work efficiency is, again, one of the key things that I always talk about when it comes to the Power Platform, because, a lot of people, they always get confused. They're like, well, we don't want shadow IT going on with the Power Platform, because shadow IT is one of the scariest things inside of an organization, because how can you really control it if you don't know about it? But with the Power Platform and the governance modules that they offer, you can really put, a chokehold on it. And also the accounts that are used inside of the Power Platform, they only have access what their regular accounts will have access to. So For example, in my test AD environment, I have Peter Capaldi, right? So if Peter Capaldi can only access, certain SharePoint pages, they're not going to be able to go through every single SharePoint page, or if Peter Capaldi can only access certain things in OneDrive, they can't take that data, dump it, and put it on Twitter. It's all about the role-based access that you give them that allows them to do what they need to do and what they can actually get out of it. Okay. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions so far? I know I kind of speak fast.
Any questions for Ben? Any questions?
Okay. All right. So
hold on one second. What are the top scenarios for PowerAutomate, Ben?
Thank you, Fabian. Some of the top scenarios that yes, the licensing is really confusing, but top scenarios. Some of the top scenarios that I've encountered was, we need to develop something quick that's scalable. That is something that it's really great for the Power Platform. For example, you have a flow that we're creating right now, or that I'll show later on. And we want to take that flow, put it in, when someone does something in a SharePoint list, for example, you want that flow to kick off and trigger and do all that stuff. You can do that with that. And the scalability comes from you're able to also take that exact flow and then put it in a Canvas app or a model-driven app, and then put that information inside of Teams. So now you can have an actual application inside of Teams, another way that people can get the job done. And then you can take that as well, put it in a Power Virtual Agent. The scalability is one of the greatest things, but those are some of the top scenarios that I've seen, and also the cost savings. Sherry said, I find the licensing confusing. Yes, indeed. I wish I had more information about the licensing. I just saw Shane Young posted a video yesterday, I want to believe, about licensing and training for that. I haven't had the opportunity to listen to it or watch it, but that's something I'm going for as well. But what I've done to save cost is so my organization have E5 licenses. I try to develop as much as I can inside the Microsoft Teams environment, so it doesn't eat away from the organizational cost for like the Dataverse storage and RPAs and stuff like that. Hope I answered those questions.
Quick question. So for people viewing this who are, let's say, the admin architect, let's say the lead for their organization, they may watch this presentation and say, okay, PowerAutomate is the way to go. Do you recommend, let's say, turning on PowerAutomate for smaller teams, or let's say across entire work center? So is it, let's say, project or task-based, or turning it on work center wide?
So what I would suggest before you turn it on for everyone is you look up the Center of Excellence for the Power Platform. That will right there will start you off on the right foot, because the governance modules that are inside of there will allow you to put a stop to anything that you might have to deal with in the future. And then from after you set up your Center of Excellence, then roll it out to smaller teams and then potentially your entire organization. Let me see if I can find the link for that. But it has a lot of information. Where did it go? Like the nurture and the governance modules are my favorite. The overview, the admin module for the Center of Excellence as well will show you every single thing that's happening inside of your organization. So you'll get better insights on all of this. And yeah, that's, in my opinion, that'll be the best way to go forward.
Thank you.
Let's see, I will put in the chat. This is about the Center of Excellence. Okay. So Let me move this over here. So PowerAutomate right now is going through a change. There's originally it was flow.microsoft.com, and now it's migrating everything to make.powerautomate.com. So when you get started, you'll just go to this website and you're like, okay, there's a lot of things I can do. What am I going to do? And then it's very easy to get overwhelmed. But if you start with something simple that you have to do every single day, that would be a really good start. So a lot of people, when they come together, they go right to create, and then, they go through flows this way. And they'll end up having stuff that looks like this. And okay. So this is the general user interface for PowerAutomate. Everything starts with a trigger. That trigger can have input variables that's in there. Like if you're writing a function in any language, you need input variables to get your output. You can break everything out like that, and you can have, to a degree, validation inside of your triggers. So if you need email addresses, you can add an input for email. You need text or files. Files are also really cool too, but we'll get to that at another time. So this flow right here is just going to take information from the person that inputs it, and it's going to make a 365 SharePoint group. 365 user group. All right, and we can actually go and we'll just test right here manually. We want this group to be public. We want the display name to be the doctors. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, so most of my stuff is Doctor Who based. All the doctors. We'll just call it the doctors. So in this group, we'll add Peter Capaldi, we'll add Matt Smith, we'll add Jody Whitaker. All right, boom. And then, we'll click Run Flow. And we'll look at the output. Right, so just as fast as I was able to type that information in, it already created the groups and everything that I need. Now, let's take a deeper look inside of there to see what was going on. Okay, so we started off with the trigger. We know that if we're using the Graph API for creating the groups, and that documentation can be found online, Microsoft website, we know that the body of the API call needs to have description, display names, et cetera, et cetera. Again, you put the URI in there, you set the message to post, and you put your content type there at the bottom. So knowing that, let's make that with our triggers. So group visibility, private or public, group display name, whatever the display name, and a lot of this stuff is self-explanatory with that. But the next thing is we take this and we parse this information how we wanted to parse it, because you always don't show your users, the names of the actual variables. You want it to be something that looks a little bit neater and nicer for them so that they can have a better user experience. So, we take that information, put it in JSON format, and we parse that JSON information out from there. Now, the next part that is going on is we then put that information in the format that we need to put it in to make that API call to Graph. And then we get the return from that API call. We parse that information out. We build a if statement that's in here that adds the users to the group that they need to be in. And again, the apply to each is basically a for loop if you think of it like that. And then it just adds the creator at the end, right? And if we look on the back end side of it, what did it look like? So wait, actually, before I continue, does anybody have any questions about this part yet? Take a sip of water. Okay. So on the back end, we have the input. We know the schema that it needs. Everything is right here in plain text. We know we want everything to be the doctors. We have all the email addresses right here. You could see it better. You could see better of what the parsing is doing right here. Boom, it makes all of that. Now the API call from Graph, the same exact thing that you would see in the Graph Explorer, or on the Microsoft documentation, you would see in here. Or if you do this in the command line and like, PowerShell or some other type of terminal, you'll see the same exact thing. Now it has all of that. We have our inputs, we have our outputs now. We have the body of what we were sending, and we can see the headers that it returned to us. All right, now, good, status 201. Now it's parsing the information out from that request, and it's adding that, and it's following the rest of the conditions. So it said, which one condition was this? Okay, it said if the members are empty. So this expression right here is saying if the members that we entered at the top, if they didn't have anything, skip this part, but obviously it did. And then we had an apply to each in there, which is a for loop to add all the members in the group. Now, one cool thing about PowerAutomate as well, and it's cool and also like a burden at a lot of times, is if it senses that your object or your input is an array or an object, it will automatically say, okay, we need an apply to each. We basically need a for loop for this entire thing. It's good and it's bad sometimes, because sometimes you don't really need a for loop, but it works out well. So yeah, it did that. And then it added me, the creator, to the group. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Ben? Use the Q&A.
Yeah, I don't see the Q&A. That's why I'm asking if there was. Oh, okay. Wait, we did that. Okay. So the next part. What is something you would like to automate? Again, I can sit up here and do all this stuff, but unless it's working with permissions tricky in PowerAutomate when using the Microsoft Graph to make calls. Yes. So what I found when using PowerAutomate to make Graph API calls, unless I have that permission already, it won't really work. And a lot of organizations, they block everything, trust, zero trust type of mentality. So, you can find the information on the Graph website, you try to plug it in, and unless you know that you have access that endpoint, it will be tricky. But that's the only real part where it's tricky. The documentation that Microsoft provides in the test cases in the Graph Explorer work really, really well. And if you've never seen it before, I should bring it up. Boom. Yeah, so, whenever I do anything like that, I always test all of my API calls for Graph inside of here. So if I was trying to read something and I didn't have consent enabled, I wouldn't be able to use the Microsoft Graph API inside of PowerAutomate to do what I needed to do. And I wouldn't know that because it would just return an error, like a 401 error, because I'm unauthorized. So that is definitely one of the challenges I felt I faced myself. Anything else? So
yes, is working with permissions tricky in PowerAutomate when using the Microsoft Graph to make calls?
Yeah, I just touched on that. I was saying, yeah, it's a little bit tricky just because not all the time do you know that you have access. So testing with the Graph Explorer first is always what I do. In my mind, that's one of my best practices. That's what I tell all my teams to do. So yeah. So Would anybody like to suggest something that they want to automate, or something that, you know, that's a pain that they have to go through every single day? And it could be anything.
I would say approval. So let's
Approvals.
say
Perfect.
we have a number of contractors, and they have to get timesheets, which are created in Microsoft Excel, or their Excel spreadsheets, essentially, and they have to be approved by a chain of people.
Okay, so let me write this down so I don't miss anything that's important. Okay, so we have Excel approval, multiple people. All right, so whenever I try to build a new flow for a new idea or anything like that, first thing I like to do is I like to make a new solution, right? Because, you know, we should have prod and dev accounts and add users to a SharePoint group. Actually, yes, that is another really easy thing to do. You can, okay. We'll get back to Srini. Srini, I'll get back to you on that part. We'll do the approval one first, because approval is going to take a little bit of time. So timesheet approval. We select a publisher. We call it Ben. Well, we'll say it's version 1. So the importance of making solutions is so that you can test in your dev environment and export that solution, which is all of your flows or tables or anything that you make, and export all of that stuff together to a prod environment. So let's take we'll start with an automation of we'll do an instant cloud flow. We will call this timesheet. Another thing that is very important of why I also like to use solutions is because for the scalability reason. So when you're building a flow and just regular flow on the side, you can only use that flow in that point. Here, when you're building a flow, you can have it provide an output to another flow. So we're going to respond to PowerAutomate flow. Where are we at? There we go. Okay. We'll just leave that like that for right now. Always save. Very important that you save, because only if this. Okay. Only if this doesn't, you know, yeah. Timesheet, mail approval. Okay, so we have an input from a user. This, we'll take an email address first. We'll call it submitter. Now, the next thing we would like to do is we would like to use Active Directory and Azure Active Directory inside of here to pull their manager information. So now we'll do Office 365 users. Get manager. Well, whenever you sign into a connector for the first time, sometimes it takes some time. User principal name or ID. We will put you know what? Let's initiate. We're going to make a variable right now. We'll make a couple of variables. We'll make one for submitter, one variable for manager. I'll call it string. Also, it's very important that you declare your variables up top, or else it's not going to work. we are also going to make what, no, there we go. Scopes, right? So whenever you're building large Power Apps or Power Automate flows, you want to break everything down as small as possible. This way, someone can come back and they can see what you've done, and they're like, okay, this is happening at this point. So we'll call this scope the manager lookup. So it's going to get manager for the person. That person, we're going to set the this variable to submitter, and then put that variable information in here, right? After we get that, we're going to add another action to set the variable. We're going to set the variable of manager to. Another great thing about Power Automate is, typically when you're trying to build all these applications, you have to remember, what every single outcome or out variable would be. Great thing about Power Automate and their dynamic content is it has that information already built for you for a lot of things. So, all right, so we have manager, and we're going to take their user principal name and put that in there so we can reference that later on. All right, now we're going to add another scope for approvals. And we create an approval. Approval type, approve or reject. Well, and for your case, Shadid, when you were saying that everyone needs to approve it or everyone needs to look at it, we can do it like that. We have a couple options in here: approve, reject for everyone, first to respond, or wait for all responses. So we will call this one timesheet. We're going to assign this to the manager. We will put the details as please review time sheet. Requester is going to be the submitter. Enable notifications, yes. Enable reassignments, whatever you guys would like to have for that. That's what we put there. Let's see what this is going. Power Automate has not installed this environment. Okay. So now we have that, and yeah, so click save. Okay, now for the Excel sheet part, we would come in here, we would go to file, and we'll put time sheet. And please copy time sheet in here. We will add, we'll just say it's time sheet, and then the content will be the content of the timesheet itself. Boom. Again, no real heavy lifting for anything, just copy and paste. Okay. So let's save. And I don't think I have I could just make something real quick. I'll just take this, save it to the desktop. Okay, save. Now we're going to test it manually. Test. We're going to sign in to give these approvals. How much time? Okay. I want to go into a little bit more information about these, the sign-ins before we end, but Jody Whitaker, she reports to me, so I would upload her timesheet, boom, and run flow. And now it's going to take a little bit because the module for approvals hasn't been installed to my environment. So while that's going, let's see if we can solve Srini's issue with taking those people and add them to a group. Yeah. So so we're gonna make a new set solution. Then create. Automation, Cloudflow, Instant. So there's a couple different cloud flows that we can create. So automated means that if it needs something to make it happen. Instant is, typically at the click of a button, something that you can actually do from your phone. Scheduled is, reoccurring tasks. So, yep, this is still going. So add to SharePoint. We'll manually create a flow. We will take email addresses in here and let's see, SharePoint. One great thing about it being, all Microsoft products is everything is really, really, really good at being looped together. So, see more. Okay, well, so since they don't have that trigger, we can actually just use the Graph API to do that instead. So 40. I don't have that much time left.
Take your time. You have plenty of questions here in the Q&A, so take your time.
Okay. One moment.
The time is a boundary for bad presentations, Ben, but the good ones tend to go on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Documentation. We're going to look for. Oh, we have Explorer. Let's see. SharePoint sites. We only have gets, we don't have puts. Post. This might be fun. Srini, I'm going to have to get back to you. I'm going to put my email in there and yeah. Okay. I timed out. Okay. So let's see what's going on right now. So now, oh, okay. So back to the timesheet approval. You did the manager lookup. It got the manager name. Wow, that's me. Wow, what'd you know? So I should be able just to go to Teams and other teams. Got it. Oh no. Go. And then in here, there should be an approvals. Yep. Bennett, I've been automated. Bennett, I've been automated. Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. Jody Whitaker sent me an approval. So boom, please review timesheet from Jody. Cool. I can just type in whatever comments, approved, and then hit approve. And then that's it. If I was going to deny it, it would be the same thing. Application timed out. Okay. Yeah. It timed out this time because it was taking a very long time to actually get the module installed for approvals. But that is a very simple concept for doing the a timesheet approval. And if you needed more people in there, you can just add more people, add more managers, add required people. So that's that. REST API we can add through Graph API. I don't find options. Oh, was I not sharing the Teams window? Ouch. I'll do this again. In Teams, in my environment, there's an approval portal right here where you can see all the approvals that you have. And this has really good integrations with DocuSign and Adobe Sign, but Jody Whitaker needs something approved. I got a notification in Teams. I hit approve, and then that's it. Just like that. After you create a flow, is there a way to grant permissions to a group to see the flow or make changes to it? Yes. So what I'd like to do a lot is let's look at this view of the flows, right? And ignore that it said fields right here. You have different type of permissions that you can get, right? Owners, they'll be able to do everything. And I believe you should be able to add groups. Yeah, see our Time Lord group that we created earlier, that's right here. Boom. Now they have access to everything, but you have to be extremely careful with this because whatever connections you use inside of this flow, that person will now have access to. So again, if you're using your personal account, then one of the problems that you'll end up facing is someone will end up doing things as you. And you don't want that because it'll look like you're going rogue and then people start yelling at you. So I'm speaking from experience. It was bad. So, okay. So that's how you're able to add an entire group. Now, I'm sure you guys saw before when I was adding, the one flow and I was getting started for the first time. One of the things it asked me was to sign in. Now, signing is really good because you have that level of non-repudiation. So you're like, all right, cool. I know this is you doing this, but sometimes you have backend processes that don't require people to sign in, or you're doing this stuff as like with a service account, so right here at the bottom, they have these run only users. Here is where you choose how you want people to connect. So let's just say you want Office 365 users to use their connection. You click that. But if you want everyone to use the same exact connection, you just click that. Okay. That, okay. And you press save. That helps so much for service accounts and flows. You would not, not believe how much that helps. So let's look at this. We can let's resubmit this again so that we can see what's going on. And okay, now I got a notification. Oh, Jody Whitaker sent me a request. Okay, approve. Now, after that approval, there's other workflows that can happen with it. like you can have it send an email to the person explaining how everything was approved. And, if you have any follow-up information or any other workflows that are behind that, you can add those in there as well. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Are you ever concerned that you'll be so successful automating things that you'll automate yourself and others out of a job? Yes and no. Because I told, when I first started using the Power Platform, I told my manager, Taryn, I was like, Taryn, I'm going to automate myself out of a job. And he was like, good luck. And I was like, all right, I've been trying ever since. But Srini, I'm going to have to reach back to you on that. Can you remove the group from being able to see all of your business emails? No. So that's the thing. If you have it so that you're using that one account, your primary account, to access the flows, then technically no, but they will be able to see all of your, whatever access that connection has. So that's one of the downsides, and that's one of the good things about using service accounts. But service accounts do come at a cost because, most of them require licenses for, like a E3, E5 license, or a per app or per flow license, which can, again, just like Sherry was saying, it can be very tricky. But what I'll do is I'm going to take everything that we created today. I'm going to export it as a solution. So if anybody wants to look at this stuff again for their own personal gain, they'll be able to have access to this. Also, if you need any help with anything, you have any questions, have any ideas, please feel free to reach out to me. I want to say thank you, Mr. Shadid, and thank you, Fabian, for making this whole thing happen for me. And yeah, that's about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, BSPUG Nation, Ben Hill has delivered a great session. There will be an encore presentation of the recording of this session, which will be featured on LinkedIn Live. So stay tuned for that announcement. And that's one new wrinkle that we're adding to get more, let's say, shelf life out of each presentation, each featured presentation. So if there are no further questions, I'll give a moment for any questions or comments. Ben, are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I am. And you can find me at LinkedIn/I've been automating. All one word, IBEN automating. Let's see. Yeah. I can just paste it in the chat.
Okay, so the next stop is for you, dear attendee, to go over to LinkedIn and share some feedback about this session. You can add a LinkedIn recommendation. And what this does is for Ben's speaking career. Of course, if other user group leaders see the positive feedback, it allows for him to continue to deliver these presentations around the country, around the world. And again, that's one of the benefits of speaking at user groups, is that feedback. So add him on LinkedIn, leave some feedback on his session. And thank you once again for delivering your magic and teaching us the ins and outs of PowerAutomate to deliver a live demo based on a random request from the audience is very ambitious. And so that is not easy to do. So thank you for providing that value to the group. And stay tuned for next month's presentation, third Thursday of October. And onward we go. And thank you all for attending.
Okay.